Welcome everybody to another episode of the Free Agent Podcast. So lucky to have Deb Coviello here. Deb, thanks for joining.
Oh, it's a pleasure, Beau. Looking forward to sharing insights and just having an amazing conversation.
Yeah, and I'm excited about this because first and foremost, I've been on your podcast, and I want to dig into that a little bit about the passion and kind of the points and pain points that you hope to uncover and go through. But I really kind of like how you've tagged yourself as the CEO whisperer. What does that mean from your perspective? And you're also a fractional leader. Is it all fractional work? Like, talk to me a little bit about that.
So I will be whatever that leader needs. And mind you, my brand is actually the drop-in CEO, which is a little bit different than fractional leadership. But again, I did that to stand out from a crowded group of highly talented fractional professionals. But it was a client of mine that called me the CEO's whisperer because that person did bring me at a place where they were feeling pretty uncomfortable. They were potentially going to go into crisis. And along the way, we did that work to kind of mitigate the issues they were having and stabilizing. But then this is where the magic comes in. Then they said, Deb, can we talk? Can we talk? Just off the record here.
Sure.
And they needed somebody to talk to about how they were feeling and their mindset and how to handle situations, because being a CEO, a founder, an owner of a company is very, very lonely. And so through that, sometimes they just let their hair down. They
Got it.
trust I can listen. They talk to me, and then I share my insights so they can see what they cannot see. That's the CEO whisper.
Got it. So it's like one part ops, one part psychologist, one part friend and mentor, all kind of wrapped in a nice little package.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a Gemini. I'm two different personalities. I'll be whatever you need me to be.
Love it. I love it. No, but also, podcast host, author of 2 books. What's the CEO's Compass about?
Yeah, so the CEO's Compass, gosh darn it, people are starting to say, Deb, what are you all about? You keep putting out this all amazing content, this video, these blog posts, but what's your system? What is it all about? And so that was kind of an eye-opening thing. And what I found was, and again, this used to be the 7 P's for quality. And you know what? That's boring because I was doing it in all kinds of quality circles. And then I realized I needed a system. And so a little bit of late night doodling, I realized my insights was kind of like a compass, the CEO's compass. And I was like, boom, that's it. Because CEOs are amazing. They got to these roles because they were so great at what they do. They have this amazing playbook, but then something goes off track and they don't know what happened. So this is a distillation of my perspectives based on my corporate experience, direct mistakes that I've made along the way, but
Right.
also dropping into smaller entities and seeing the same patterns over and over again. I find it's not a 5-step approach to fix you. You're not broken. But
Right.
you have to evolve and look inside. Do you need to change your leadership? Your playbook is not working. You need to evolve. And then I provide some compass points for you to think about differently and then come out and get yourself back on track. That was the impetus for the book. And I'm grateful because now I figured out what I'm all about and can share these insights with others.
Absolutely. And then you got another book due out later this year, Secrets of the C-Suite.
Yeah, so let's go there.
It's kind of a
uh,
continuation.
Yeah, so it is because when I wrote the first book, I wanted to write it to the world. And then my book coach says, no, Deb, you need to write it to one audience. I said, okay, I'll write it for the CEO. But there was another demographic I sincerely care about. It is the up and coming leader that is amazing. They may not aspire to the C-suite, but they want to have more impact.
Right.
That demographic is your manager, your director, your VP, and they get stuck. So over the course of 2023, every Friday, I recorded a solo episode meant to give you insights that I had to learn the hard way in order to be seen, heard, respected, be more visible, have more impact, be seen as a strategic leader. Well, all that content exists. I just have to sit down and put it all together. But as a leader,
Yeah.
I put the brakes on, reflected. I said, I can't do it all at once. Let's prioritize what's important. So that book will come out. If I work really hard, we can still see a 2024, but it might be 2025, and that's okay.
It's funny where, business owners, solopreneurs, fractional execs, what have you, CEOs, a lot of times, part of like the decision-making criteria is prioritizing what's important and what's not. And I've been through the same thing where I wrote a book because I feel like everybody has one now, especially if you have a podcast. wrote the one, and I had this great, big, ambitious goal of, writing a second, and it's like 80% done. I can't get to it because there's other things that I have to do that are more important currently. So I'm in the exact same situation where I wanted to launch in January. Well, we're almost, like halfway through the year, if not halfway through the year. So maybe it's going to be a 2025 initiative. So I can totally relate to that thought process.
But I'm not done yet. It'll come. It's just it's hard for us leaders to pause and slow down and go through what is important, what is urgent, and be okay with it and not feel bad. The strength is to be able to say what I am going to work on and what I'm not.
Yeah, no, totally agreed. And then finally, which I think arguably the most interesting part of your background is you were a silver medalist curling.
Yeah, it's not showing on my background right now, but yeah, I can claim I
Yeah.
have a silver medal that is from the same organization that does provide those medals to
That's
even the people that won gold in the Olympics, Team Schuster. So I actually in 2017 was playing in a league for arena nationals, arena clubs, people that don't have a dedicated facility. We work hard at maintaining our craft. But here's the thing I remember my husband saying again, I was with a great team. I played the lead and we were kind of getting up to the quarterfinals. And my husband talks to me because they were also competing. I
Oh,
said,
wow.
guys, you can go all the way. I said, what do you mean we can go all the way? I said, you guys are firing on all pistons. You can go all the way. So we got to that gold medal round. We lost by 1 point. My team stomps off into the changing room because they were so disappointed they got the gold. They didn't get the gold. And I'm out on the ice. They're shaking the gold medalists and saying, boy, I got the silver. I'm
Yeah.
so excited because there's such a win in
That's
getting that and just appreciating the work we did versus what we didn't do. So, yeah, that is my claim to fame. And I am happy to talk to anybody about curling that is interested.
Curling is one of the like winter sports that I always watch. I don't know why, but I love it. It's fantastic, and congrats on the silver medal, and thank you for your service. Right.
Thank you.
So let's get into stuff here. So talk to me a little bit. How'd you get into kind of the business of being the drop-in CEO? Like, where does that passion come from? Was it just was there an inflection point when you were in corporate America and you were like, I've really got this passion for working directly with CEOs and I need to go follow this? Like, talk to us a little bit about kind of the origin story.
Yeah, so I didn't own this in the beginning, but I am now proud to say I got kicked out of the nest from corporate, and it was the best thing that ever happened. I was achieving that C-suite level role. I was growing as an individual and having major impact. And then things changed, and I wasn't having quite the same impact. It was very frustrating, and none of the things that I could do would actually change how I feel. And at the end of the day, we parted ways very amicably with great respect and a runway. And then I said, now what? What am I going to do? But I will tell you in the moment, the knee jerk reactions. I don't want to go back to corporate. I want to be able to be in charge of my own destiny. And then through some soul searching, I said, well, what is my value? And I said, I'm still technically very competent. And I know from experience working for some of the smaller acquisitions that I'm really good with these small and medium sized companies. They got a can do attitude. I got this great experience. I can see what better looks like. And being able to come together and do that work, I said, that's who I want to work with. I just have to find those people. Now, along the way of, okay, I'm a consultant, hung my shingle for Illumination Partners. Then all of a sudden I get this podcasting bug. I'm being interviewed. I'm sharing about my insights. They say, Deb, what do you do? So I'm like the drop-in CEO. I drop into businesses. I assess the landscape. I partner with the C-suite leader. We do the business work, but at the same time, we elevate the people for a lasting impact. And after the show, they said that was brilliant. And they said, where did that come from? I said, I don't know. It just rolled out of my mouth. But the story that I was thinking about behind my pet mind was when I was in a business, a startup, and we were struggling. A
Mhm.
CEO was dropped in from their private equity. They rolled up their sleeves. They helped myself and the VP of operations. We fixed the business issue and they elevated our confidence so we could be better. And then they pulled him out and dropped in the next CEO to bring us IPO. But I remember how they made me feel. We fixed the problems and I felt great along the way. And I said, that's the way I operate now.
That's great.
That's how I differentiate myself. Yes, I'm a fractional leader, but I'm the drop-in CEO. Don't become a CEO, but I become that extension of the CEO or the C-suite leader to get the work done.
No, I love that. I've seen a lot of movement kind of in that space, chief of staff. Like there's definitely some interest in folks that can kind of like help a CEO with all the balls that they're juggling at any given time. and distill that down to the 2 to 3 that are most important at that moment, right? And kind of help them
Yeah.
on the execution side, but then also kind of on the management side. In that vein, I'd like to get a little bit more topical here and get to the people component, right? And so, it's my understanding that a lot of times when companies bring you in, it's because they need help. And one of the things that we talked about kind of, the pre-show was having the courage to ask for help. Like, why is it important to have the courage? And when should companies, like, what should be the impetus for somebody realizing they actually need some help from somebody such as yourself?
Yeah. So the companies ideally should call me when something is starting to change and they have the awareness that they may not have the competency or capacity within their current organization. That's an ideal state. And then we can come in and do things methodically. What I'm seeing, however, is that they're either proud or they can't necessarily see that if they don't do something quickly, we're going to go into chaos, which is the firefighting. People are surviving, but you're beating their people to get the work done. You're up late at night. And
Yeah.
worse yet, if you wait any longer, you go into crisis. Again, my crisis scale, and that's when you're losing market share of business, and then it's harder to get out of that. So there's something in this pride. They are applying the same playbook. I've been here before. I should be able to fix this. And they wait too long. And yes, I can drop in at any point along that spectrum and solve the business issue, but it might be a little harder and it might have done a little bit of damage. So I ask these leaders, look at yourself first. Don't have too much pride. Be stronger to ask for help sooner.
Yeah, a super interesting point, especially about the proud component, because I've been in business for 7 years, and I found myself in that situation where, especially during COVID and just kind of the influence of events that we've had the last 2, 3 years in the tech sector, there's been some moments where it's like, well, this has worked before. Why is it not working now? Right. And then you find yourself literally waiting too long to ask for help, get help, or uncover what's needed. And you are moving into chaos and crisis. I really kind of like that scale. That's super interesting. It really resonates with me as well, because I can see that as a big trap for growth orgs.
So let me just share with you the full scale. And I don't think it's rocket science, but I do see this over and over again. The worst place to be, I call it a 5. It's in crisis. You're losing market share, customers, credibility. 4, you're in chaos. You're feeling bad. You're feeling uncomfortable. You're firefighting. You might not have lost key people, but you're on the verge of it. Ideally, you need to be at a stage 3 to be in control, be able to breathe and assess the landscape about what are the changes coming so I can plan for it, to ultimately be in a place of continuous improvement. Again, that's the maturity of the organization and firing on all engines. And then finally, this is where you'd love to be, is to have an operating system that's like a competitive advantage to the point where your customers, your clients are coming to you to learn and partner with you. You're seen as a valuable partner versus just a service provider.
Mhm.
That's where you want to be. Again, call me anytime along the way, but better to do it sooner than later.
Yeah, and so in that vein too, I mean, where should somebody start, right? So, CEO of a high growth company, you realize you have a problem, you realize you're in chaos, maybe moving into crisis mode. But where should somebody that finds themselves in that situation, where should they start? Is it a drop-in CEO? Is it a fractional expert consulting company? And I realize that's a loaded question because it kind of depends on the challenge in the industry. But what are maybe some gotchas they should look out for, and where could they potentially start to kind of solve their problem?
Well, one is procrastination. You know you have to get something done, but you haven't even laid it out into your strategic plan. Again, I have one example where I was supposed to help a company get a particular quality certification because if they didn't, it became a barrier for entry to remain on the core supplier list. So I would say is if you start seeing a changing landscape, a new requirement, and you haven't been getting it into your strategy, you're not raising it in your senior leadership meetings, but it's out there. Nobody really knows about it. I'll bring it forward, even if it's not urgent, but at least plan it for the next quarter, next year, etc. Get it on the radar
Yeah.
before it's too late. And then you're hurry, scurry, and you're not sure what to do or who to trust. Start building that network of people that potentially you can pull in when you want to pull the trigger. So that external networking, get that in place now. So when you're ready, those
That's
are my thoughts.
interesting. And I feel the most savvy CEOs that I talk to are continuously pipelining potential candidates and partners for unforeseen issues. So they know exactly who to bring in when. And I find myself doing that as well, where I want folks and companies and trusted partners waiting in the wings, because inevitably there generally is going to be an opportunity to bring these folks in, and they're pre-vetted, trusted. I can definitely expedite overcoming the challenge.
I mean, that's the beauty of the fractional network, is that once you have the opportunity to be in service and create a great result, they sincerely trust you. And then they say, who do you know?
Right.
Who do you know? And then that leads to the goodwill and being able to continue to be in service, whether it's yourself or through somebody else.
Exactly. Staying in kind of line with this whole people component. So, you're a big proponent of like elevating people. And I'd love to kind of dig into that, because particularly to your point, when you're in crisis mode, a lot of the times people within your org are not your number one concern, when arguably they generally should be, right? Happy
Mm.
people, good work product. But talk a little bit about kind of elevating folks within an organization, not just solving business issues, but elevating the folks within the org to kind of help ensure everybody's on the same page of music.
I will tell you just one particular example, and it's the same company where I helped them to achieve a certification. Now, one can check the box. Yep, I got that certification. Whew, I can be here now. But one of the things that we learned along the way was there was an area where we weren't meeting the requirements. And we started looking at the reasons why. And it really came down to a people issue. This person had been so valuable for so many years, but things had changed. They needed to have more leadership, more strategic thinking versus just a captain and just executing the work, a perfect floor leader. But they couldn't elevate themselves to the next level, process improvements, and you didn't want to lose this resource. So one of the things that we learned is it may not be the people, but do you have all the people in the right place? What this company learned along the way, by at least being proactive and understanding the value of elevating their processes, et cetera, was let's supplement this person with somebody that does love process improvement, or somebody that is really good at all these things that they're not good at. This is a little bit about working with the organization to see what is missing in terms of their people's capabilities. Now, the same company also had a little bit of an issue, is being able to learn along the way. We did hire eventually a full-time quality leader in this organization, but in the process, they trusted that they were doing the right job, but didn't verify. And so they actually got to a place of chaos again. And I had to come in and fix in order to retain that certification. And along the way, the leader did realize that they too needed some development, that they were not verifying. We as leaders need to go to where the work is done and verify that we are getting what we need. That person learned a lot in the process. And hence, now they have one-on-ones with a new leader, so they don't get in that place again. So it's not just the floor people and elevating their capability, but also the leader learns in the process.
And I find this such an interesting point. And, I will get on my soapbox from time to time about outgrowing employees, and that's not a bad thing. And I like the perspective you brought up, though, as well, about leveling them up, right? So it's one thing to maybe take them out of a job, move them somewhere else. Or to the point you brought, is bring in a mentor that can kind of help them develop the skill sets that they need to get to the next level. But we see it time and time again, especially with growth companies in the tech sector, where they get to a point, they got to 15 million in ARR, and all of a sudden they've outgrown their personnel, and they need somebody else to come in to help them get from that 15 to 30. And not to go on a tangent about the fractional space, but that's why I'm such a big believer, because you can bring in parts of the puzzle, as needed, to help you get to that next level of growth.
And that's exactly what happened with this client. They brought me in at a major change, and they kept bringing me back into different bits. And in the process, they remained on the core supplier list. They got more business. They built a new facility. They are growing. They are a different company for it. And they're now thinking ahead. And they just completely evolve by leveraging fractional leadership along the way to get them to where they need to be.
So I think that's a great segue to get a little bit deeper on the fractional side of the house. So, things we talked about is how fractional leaders can provide peace of mind and be a good option for companies that are either in a pinch or need some air support, is kind of how we refer to it. But the pinch component is where I think it could be one of the most interesting use cases for the fractional. A lot of the time, the work we do, we bring in maybe an interim leader, or the company has some specific project, they need help. But they kind of know where they want to go, more or less. But the pinch issue is really interesting, because I've always kind of thought about fractional leaders as maybe being smoke jumpers or like SEAL Team 6. Now, talk to me a little bit about your perspective on that. If you think that's a viable option, when company, to your point, maybe going to get kicked off the supplier list, to me, that's a big deal.
So you're off track. The roof is burning, the house is burning. Dropping in is exactly what I've done, and I did this in about just 5 weeks ago, and actually last summer. But those were situations where I totally knew the business. I was a fractional quality leader for about 5 or 6 weeks time. They were burning in one particular situation. They were losing resources. They people were had a toxic leader that they had to replace, and by the way, they didn't know. They didn't know that the plant was actually going to be shut down. I was going to be responsible for exiting the people as well. Who's going to hire a permanent quality person for that role? Bring in somebody that can plug and play. They can quickly understand the industry. They can quickly see what is missing and close those gaps and at least calm things down, which is exactly what I did. I found out they didn't have enough resources. We got them some temps. We learned that they couldn't even do their own decision making. It was on the leader and they were demeaned in the process. I gave them back their confidence. Say, how would you solve that? Do you have the capability to make that decision? They said, yes, we can. Okay, we're lifting the people in the process. I can do this. Now, fortunately, I never had to close the plant down, but I had to do everything else to make sure the people felt like they were treated with respect. We made sure the business continued to deliver until which time they actually then did it in a more respectful way. But I dropped in. They pulled me out real quickly because corporate quality was then able to provide the leadership needed until the transition. But there is something beauty about being able to drop in and quickly assess the landscape very quickly and become effective within a couple, 3 days.
Yeah, and I think a key component of that, which you nailed, is having the required experience, background, industry, and also understanding and having likely in your past overcome that exact challenge. The beauty of the fractional model as it pertains to kind of being a smoke jumper or being literally dropped in, is that the ramp to success, the ramp to understanding the problem is severely lessened. There's no politics, and it's all about kind of overcoming the challenge at hand as quickly and as efficiently as possible.
Now, there's a part two to that is okay, yeah, I can just jump in and see what needs to get done. But then there's also like, how then do you get the work done? And there's an element of being able to become part of the fabric, not as a consultant. Here, I'm going to give you all the things you need to fix. Hey, the buck stops with me too. I have to help the team fix the things. I have to learn their language and their culture and the people. And instantaneously, you become somebody that's been there for years because I become part of the team. That's the beauty of the fractional leader. It's actually quite different than just being a consultant. We partner with the business. We are part of it. We feel the pain and the glory.
It's interesting too about the people component is what I found is that because it's typically devoid of politics, you're able to garner trust a lot quickly with the folks that you're working with.
I'm an unknown.
What's that?
I become the unknown. I mean, they don't know me. They don't want my history, but the onus is on me to understand their history and say, oh, I've seen this before. I know I need to spend more time with this person. I need to align with that stakeholder because ultimately establishing the common ground. They don't know me. There's no politics. There's no history. It's about here I am to help.
Yeah, no, agreed. You have one mission. So where can people find you, Deb? Where can they learn more about you and the Drop-In CEO as well as your podcast?
Yeah, so very simple. The website is dropinceo.com. Go to my contact page. You can find me. There is also a link to my book, The CEO's Compass. It is a great resource for CEOs that just need to evolve their leadership, especially when they are off track. And the podcast, the Drop-In CEO podcast, available on all the major podcast platforms. And please look for Beau Billington. He was an amazing guest. And quite frankly, I just want to talk to you, get to know you, just learn more about who you are. And maybe in this few moments can impart some insight and you be on your way. Or maybe we can work together. But I would love to connect with anybody out there and just so grateful, Beau, to have the opportunity to speak to you and your audience.
Yeah, Deb, I really appreciate it. We'll be sure to add some links to the video here and greatly appreciate your time as well as your insights in regards to the fractional space, people component, strategy, and asking for help when you need it. Really, really important. I feel far too many CEOs don't do that. So thanks for the insights today.
Thank you.